Welcome to another episode of the Social at Scale podcast. For today, we're going to talk about something that is one of our favorite topics here at EveryoneSocial: employee advocacy and employer branding. The two together produce some pretty amazing results for our clients. And I want to talk through some examples, some data, some trends, stuff that we're seeing, and hopefully a bunch of stuff that you can actually put to work at your company. By way of introduction, I'm Cameron. I'm the CEO and co-founder of EveryoneSocial. I'm Cameron Brain. If you would like to connect with me, please go ahead and do so. I am on Twitter and LinkedIn, the two main places that you can find me. And what is EveryoneSocial? EveryoneSocial is an employee advocacy platform. If you're unfamiliar with employee advocacy or need a little bit of a refresher, that is totally fine. We define it as tools for employees to share company content, your employer branding content included, to their social networks. The idea being that everyone in your organization has a network. From the intern to the CEO, they're connected with all these people outside of your organization. On average, each employee is connected to about 1,600 people on an external basis. And if you give them content to share, ask them to share, give them some simple tools to do so, they will do it, and they will help you distribute your important content far and wide. So that is what EveryoneSocial is, what employee advocacy is. To give you a little sense of kind of order of magnitude, because we're going to talk about some data, we have about 250,000 employees on EveryoneSocial sharing content from over 100 different countries worldwide. And we are very fortunate to work with many of the world's top organizations, companies that range from very fast growing, kind of hundreds of employees, all the way up to those with over 1 million employees. And we see our responsibility as kind of twofold. One is to ensure that we are delivering the best employee advocacy platform to our clients. And we define the best as being the simplest and the one that drives the most sustained engagement amongst their people. So a platform that their people, your people are going to want to use, they're going to want to use on a repeated basis, that doesn't get in the way of all the other things that they need to be doing on a daily and a weekly basis, but that makes it so easy that they just continue to share your content to the maximum extent possible. So that's kind of obligation one, is to deliver the best platform. Obligation two is to be the best partner to all of our clients. Us being in our position, we get to see all of these programs. We get to see what works, what doesn't, best practices, tons of data. A lot of that's what I'm going to highlight here in today's episode. And it's also one of the things that our clients ask us most frequently is, what are our other clients doing? So I'm here to share that with you all as well today. So before we get into particulars, I think it's important to kind of take a big step back and understand some of the underlying trends that make employee advocacy relevant, and in particular make employer branding a very successful kind of complement to it. Together, they produce some absolutely fantastic results. Everything that employee advocacy has to do with relates to brands. And brands are not what they used to be. Brands have been undergoing a significant kind of change and transition over the last few years. And without kind of getting too much on a soapbox, I think it's instructive to think about brands and marketing and communication really over the last 100 years, going back to kind of the early part of the 20th century, when companies wanted to market or communicate all the way up to kind of the advent of social media. They did that by way of their brand through a one-to-many communication channel, right? So if we kind of start at the early 1900s and kind of zoom up to near present, we had things like, mail. We had things like telephone, radio, television, billboard, advertising. And then, of course, with the advent of the internet, we have more advertising options. We have content marketing. We have search. All of these things, right? But they're all one-to-many. And this is why brand has been so important, in terms of a vehicle to promote your message and your content over the last 100 years. The thing is, social media has completely changed the game. Social media is the first time in the history of humanity where we have a means by which we can communicate with people on a many-to-many basis at scale. And increasingly, people are the brand as the result. I think at a very, very basic level, we people want to interact and engage with other people. When we are, quote, interacting with a brand, really we're just consuming what that brand is putting out. A brand is not a person. Yes, there may be some social media manager behind kind of the brand handles or whatever, but at best, it is a one-to-many communication, right? Like social media teams at any sized organization are often very small. They're not going to be interacting with every single person that has a question or a thought or wants to engage. And frankly, they couldn't even if they wanted to. They couldn't do it at a personalized level. But this is why so many companies are investing in employee advocacy to enable their people to serve as external ambassadors to help share their content to their networks. And this is something we're going to get into a little bit further as we go along here. So going just slightly deeper, what we've seen over the last year has been a real watershed year, I think, for employer branding. And we see, even though right now a lot of companies are kind of pulling back on hiring, there's been a lot of layoffs, we see employer branding as just table stakes for any organization that is looking to attract talent to their organization, looking to retain talent. And we think it's just going to be increasingly important, really on a consistent basis going forward. This is not a flash in the pan trend, something that only becomes important when companies are on hiring sprees. Employer branding is core to every business, and we'll get into some of the reasons why. But we've seen the basics of success. What does employer branding success look like? What are the inputs? What are the primary ingredients? From our vantage, how we work with our clients, there's really two components. There's compelling content, the stories, the content, the experience, all the stuff that you're producing. And then there's distribution. The problem is we see most companies over-focusing on the content side, on the production side. And the reason being is that we can control content production, right? We can put money towards it. We can engage an agency. We can devote our time, our team's time to producing it. There's milestones. And at the end, we have a work product. We have content that we've created. Distribution is where things get harder. They get trickier. It's less defined. It's less within our control. The problem is, though, distribution is totally connected with the value that we're actually able to produce for our organization. The value we're able to generate from our content that we've invested in producing is directly correlated to the size of the audience that we're able to distribute it to. The smaller the audience, the lower the ROI. The bigger the audience, the greater the ROI. And distribution is what employee advocacy solves. And it's part of the reason why it goes so well with employer branding initiatives. So let's look at some data. Over the first few quarters of 2022, this is what our users on EveryoneSocial, those 250,000 folks, were able to produce when sharing employer brand content. So we had around 2 million shares from EveryoneSocial to social networks. Those shares generated around 5 million engagements. So those are on-platform actions, things like likes, comments, retweets, replies, etc. If the share included a link, a URL, those shares received around 7 million clicks. Not all shares include URLs. Of course, you could share an image or a video or a GIF or something like that. But if it included a URL, that generated around 7 million clicks. And in total, those 2 million shares generated around 300 million impressions. So significant distribution, zero ad dollars spent, right? These are clients that bought EveryoneSocial, put their content in it, asked their employees to go there and help to promote it and share it to their networks, and they did it. And this is what resulted, right? Nearly 300 million impressions on around 2 million shares. Just tremendous. And so the key findings that we had as it relates to employer branding are fourfold. First, the world's top brands are leveraging their employees to distribute their content, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Employer brand content outperforms on social. anything related to an employer brand or hiring, talent attraction is just tailor-made for social. People want to share it and they want to consume it, which is wonderful. Number 3, recruiters should be your closest partners. Recruiters are awesome. They're having kind of a tough go of it right now, just because of the pullback on a lot of hiring. But recruiters were already on social before social really mattered from an employer brand perspective. They have big networks. They share more than any other type of employee that we see within an organization. So they should be your partners. We'll talk a little bit more. Number 4, what happens when employees share your open recs on social? We think you'll be really surprised by that. So number 1, why are the world's top brands activating their people to help to distribute their employer brand content? First off, they know social is where candidates are. Something like 70% of Gen Z in the workforce found their current role through something on social, a post, a piece of content, something shared by one of their colleagues or friends. These companies also have an acute need for top talent. Example I recently had an experience meeting with a large consumer goods company, large CPG company that actually has a CMO devoted to employer branding. I was meeting with her and one of her colleagues, and they asked what I thought their company did. Or, when I heard the name, what did I think that company was? And I thought about their products, I thought about the brands, and they said, yep, that makes sense. Well, we actually think about ourselves as a tech company. And I think if this CPG company is a tech company, everyone is a tech company. And that's what we see across all of our clients. Not all of our clients are tech companies. We're lucky to have a lot of great tech companies as clients, but we've got biopharma, we've got financial services, we have shipping and logistics, we've got professional services, we've got manufacturing, industrial, all sorts of stuff. It's an increasing diversity of companies that are investing in employee advocacy. And they all think about themselves the same way that CPG company thinks about themselves. They think about them as tech companies because they need that talent. They need the same talent that the tech companies have been focused on for a longer period of time. And then thirdly, these companies understand that the landscape has changed, right? It used to be an advantage for a remote organization like EveryoneSocial in terms of, we need engineers, we need people in other roles. Well, if we can hire on a remote basis, we don't have to compete against Google and Apple and Amazon and others that are centered in regional hubs, the Bay Area, Seattle, New York, et cetera. That's completely out the window. With COVID, with remote work, hybrid work, none of this is going away. And those companies have fully recognized at this point that not only can they hire people on a remote basis, but it opens up huge new talent pools. So everything is more competitive. And for many of these companies, their ability to attract this talent is potentially existential, right? If they can't get the right people to fill these roles, they won't be able to produce the growth that they need. So these are the primary reasons why we see top brands activating their people to help with the distribution of employer brand content. So number 2, let's talk about some examples. And if you're just listening to this, of course, I will explain it. But if you're watching it, there's a video companion here as well that I'm highlighting some actual posts. So these are 8 shares, 8 high-performing shares that we took from our clients. And in particular, these 8 shares garnered something like 8 million impressions, just 8 individual shares generating over 8 million impressions for their company and their company's content. And just to give you a sense of kind of like what this, what was the focus of this content and what made them outperform. We had a CEO update from a multinational conglomerate. We had a head of diversity and inclusion talking about a returnship program. We had a personal update from a sales leader at a large real estate brokerage company. We had one on company values, one on product certification, one on innovation, and then one on company performance. Now, what made these pieces of content, these employer branding pieces of content really perform was that in every single case, this was someone at this company. It could have been the social media manager, it could have been the CEO, it could have been an engineer. These are just highlighting some of the roles of the people that are on this screen. They took the content that their company had produced and they personalized it themselves. So they wrote their own spin on it. They added their own view on it. And that's part of, as we'll get into a little bit further here in a minute, really what drives kind of top performance is at the baseline, just simply getting your people to share your stuff. That is going from 0 to 1. Getting your people to then personalize it, or getting as many of them as you can to personalize it, or even going further and having them create their own content around their experience or something that they're working on or innovation or how they're performing in the market, et cetera. Having them create content is kind of the ultimate. But point being, personalization drives success. And let's move on to the next one. So recruiters, number 3, getting closer with your recruiters. So as we think about employer branding, how do we maximize the distribution of this content that you have invested in producing, that you're going to continue to invest in producing? Who in your company should you go to help to kind of kickstart this process, get your stuff off on the right foot? Recruiters represent a population of people within your company that you definitely want to be engaging with for 2 primary reasons. One, they have a bigger network than anyone else. So looking at everyone in EveryoneSocial, from CEOs to engineers, product managers, head of marketing, marketing managers, comms folks, HR, sales people, sales leaders, et cetera, of any particular role, recruiters have the largest network, and it's more than 6x the average. So the average employee on EveryoneSocial has around 1,600 connections. Recruiters have over 6,000 direct connections on average when they sign up for EveryoneSocial. They also share more. So the average employee shares about 20 to 25% less than the average recruiter. So point being here is recruiters are already on social. They know social. They're probably some of the most social native people in your organization. You give them content and some simple tools to share it, and they're going to do it. And when they share it, they're going to share more of it than anyone else, and they're going to share it to a larger network. So this is core to distribution. Recruiters are ready to go. Definitely involve them in your overall distribution plan as a part of your employee advocacy effort. And number 4, the humble job post. So what happens when someone shares one of your open recs to social? A link to one of your listings on your career site. This blew our mind. So we had a lot of great things, a lot of things that we've learned over the years. It wasn't something that began with us prescribing this to our clients. It was something that we saw our clients doing that informed our understanding of, where the real opportunities were. Our clients kind of took us to this place, is what I'm trying to say. So over the first part of 2022, we started to dig into what was all the different kinds of employer brand content and just content in general that our clients were sharing to social, that their employees were sharing. And there were a lot of job posts being shared. And job posts, it turned out, were some of the top performing content being shared from EveryoneSocial. By performing, I mean every time someone shared a job post to social, it generated more clicks and more engagements on average than any other type of content. And when it comes to clicks, every single time a job post was shared, it generated an average of 32 clicks per share, which, let me tell you, that is a multiple of the average. That is just tremendous. And again, for anyone who's looking at the video, I have an example of a pretty atypical job post. So this would be a highly personalized example. It's not even a job post. It's a post that this person wrote. They attached a photo to it talking about this role that they're opening up on their team. It doesn't even include a link to a form for anyone to fill something out. She's just basically saying, hey, if you're interested or you know someone who is, have them send me a direct message. And, it's an example of kind of a top performing version of a job post. Over 100 engagements, a significant number of clicks and impressions. But again, even if your people are just simply taking links to job posts on your career site and sharing those on social, we see an average of 32 clicks per share, which in our view is that means everyone should be doing that all the time. And I think the reason why they perform so well is everyone loves to share an opportunity, right? A job is something that has the potential to change someone's life. And it's so much more impactful than a blog post or a video or something like that. I mean, we all like sharing and consuming that kind of stuff, but people really like sharing opportunities. And their networks also like consuming them, right? Everyone is looking or thinking about, at some level, what is their next move going to be? Where's their next opportunity? How can they better support themselves, their family? How can they achieve their career ambitions? So these are some of the more kind of fundamental reasons why we believe job posts being shared on social perform so well. So that is it for today's episode. Some of the primary takeaways, I think, around employee advocacy and employer branding, why they work so well together, why we believe this is not a one-time trend. We think it's going to be kind of table stakes for any organization. Is your people are your greatest distribution asset. Every single person in your organization has a network. All of them are interested and willing to share and help promote your content. Trust drives authenticity, drives results. The more you encourage, the more you promote your people, personalizing their messages to social, the greater the results you're going to see. And ultimately, you can do this quickly and inexpensively. Like, we are fully on board with the idea that everyone out there right now is being asked to do more with less. And that, fortunately, for us and for the employee advocacy world, is really one of the underlying kind of tenets of employee advocacy. This is not ads, right? This is about taking an existing asset, your people, and giving them some very simple tools to help enable them to distribute stuff that you've produced, your content, to their networks. When we compare the results of employees versus paid ads, we're looking at multiples higher efficiency in terms of what employees can drive versus what you would have to spend to do that through something like paid ads. And you can get up and running very, very quickly. So thank you for joining me for another episode of the Social at Scale podcast. We talk about themes like this, trends. Generally, I try to have at least a few customers on every week to talk about their programs and so forth. By all means, please feel free to connect with me. Please feel free to give me your feedback. Would love to hear more of what you would like to hear, and look forward to having you back on a future episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Social at Scale podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please be sure to subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, please let me know. You can access past episodes on our site at EveryoneSocial.com/podcast. As always, please feel free to connect with me directly on Twitter or LinkedIn, and look forward to seeing you next time.